prompted him to tell her a falsehood. "I came out to see what the night looked like," he said. "When I heard you in the darkness it startled me for a moment, and I drew my pistol." It seemed to him that her fingers clutched deeper and more convulsively into his arm. "You have seen no one else?" she asked. Again he was prompted to keep his secret. "Is it possible that anyone else is awake and roaming about at this hour?" He laughed. "I was just returning to my room and to go to bed, Josephine. I thought that you had forgotten me. And Jean, where is he?" "We hadn't forgotten you," shivered Josephine. "But unexpected things have happened since we came to Adare House to night. I was on my way to you, and Jean is back in the forest. Listen." From perhaps half a mile away there came the howl of a dog, and scarcely had that sound died away when there followed it the full throated voice of the pack whose silence Philip had wondered at. A strange cry broke from Josephine. "They're coming!" she almost sobbed. "Quick, Philip! My last hope of saving you is gone, and now you must be good to me, if you care at all." She seized him by the hand and half ran with him to the door through which they had entered a short time before. In the great room she threw off her hood and the long fur cape that covered her. And then Philip saw that she had not dressed for the night and the storm. She had on a thin, shimmering dress of white, and her hair was coiled in loose golden masses about her head. On her breast, just below her white, bare throat, she wore a single red rose. It did not seem remarkable that she should be wearing a rose. To him the wonderful thing was that the rose, the clinging beauty of her dress, the glowing softness of her hair, had been for him, and that something unexpected had taken her out into the night. Before he could speak she led him swiftly through the hall beyond, and did not pause until they had entered through another door and stood in the room which he knew was her room. In a glance he took in its exquisite femininity. Here, too, the bed was set behind curtains, and the curtains were closely drawn. She had faced him now, standing a few steps away. She was deathly white, but her eyes had never met his more unflinchingly or more beautiful. Something in her attitude restrained him from approaching nearer. He looked at her and waited. When she spoke, her voice was low and calm. He knew that at last she had come to the hour of her greatest fight, and in that moment he was more unnerved than she. "In a few minutes my mother and father will be here, Philip," she said. "The letter Jean brought me back there, where we first saw each other, came up by way of Wollaston House, and told me I need not expect them for a number of weeks. That was what made me happy for a little while. They were in Montreal, and I didn't want them to return. You will understand why very soon. My father changed his mind, and almost with the mailing of the letter he and my mother started home by the way of Fond du Lac. Only an hour ago an Indian ran to us with the news that they were coming down the river. They are out there now, less than half a mile away, with Jean and the dogs." She turned a little from him, facing the bed. "You remember I told you that I had spent a year in Montreal," she went on. "I was there alone when it happened. See?" She moved to the bed and gently drew the curtains aside. Scarcely breathing, Philip followed her. "It's my baby," she whispered. "My little boy." He could not see her face. She bowed her head and continued softly, as if fearing to awaken the baby asleep on the bed. "No one knows but Jean. My mother came first, and then my father. I lied to them. I told them that I was married, and that my husband had gone into the north. I came home with the baby to meet this man I call Paul Darcambal, and whom they thought was my husband. I didn't want it to happen down there, but I planned on telling them the truth when we all got back in our forests. But after I returned I found that I couldn't. Perhaps you may understand. Up here among the forest people the mother of a baby like that is looked upon as the most terrible thing in the world. She is called Le Bête Noire, the Black Beast. Day by day I came to realize that I couldn't tell the truth, that I must live a great lie to save other hearts from being crushed as life has been crushed out of mine. I thought of telling them that my husband had died up here in the north, and I was fearing suspicion. The chance that my father might learn the untruth of it when you came. That is all, Philip. You understand now. You know why some day you must go away and never come back. It is to save the boy, my father, my mother, and me." Not once in her terrible recital had the girl's voice broke. And now, as if bowing herself in silent prayer, she kneeled beside the bed and lay her head close to the baby's. Philip stood motionless, his unseeing eyes staring straight through the log walls and in the black night to a city 1,000 miles away. He understood now. Josephine's story was not the strangest thing in the world after all. It was perhaps the oldest of all stories. He had heard it 100 times before, but never had it left him quite so cold and pulseless as he was now. And yet, even as the palace of the wonderful ideal he had built crumbled about him in ruin, there rose up out of the dust of it a thing, new born and tangible for him. Slowly his eyes turned to the beautiful head bowed in its attitude of prayer. The blood began to surge back into his heart. His hands unclenched. She had told him that he would hate her, that he would want to leave her when he heard the story of her despair. And instead of that, he wanted to kneel beside her now and take her close in his arms, and whisper to her that the sun had not set for them, but that it had only begun to rise. And then, as he took a step toward her, there flashed through his brain like a disturbing warning the words with which she had told him that he would never know the real cause of her grief. "You may guess, but you would not guess the truth if you lived 1,000 years." And could this that he had heard, and this that he had looked upon, be anything but the truth? Another step and he was at her side. For a moment all barriers were swept from between them. She did not resist him as he clasped her close to his breast. He kissed her upturned face again and again, and his voice kept whispering, "I love you, my Josephine. I love you. I love you." Suddenly there came to them sounds from out of the night. A door opened, and through the hall there came the great, rumbling voice of a man, half laughter, half shout. And then there were other voices, the slamming of the door, and the voice again, this time in a roar that reached to the farthest walls of Adare House. "Ho, Mignon! Ma Josephine!" And Philip held Josephine still closer and whispered, "I love you." Chapter 9.